The first time it happened, it wasn't what you think. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a touch. It was a glance, one of those moments that sneaks up on you and shakes your entire world. My name is Lauren Parker, and if you'd told me a year ago that my life would spiral the way it did, I would have laughed. I was a 34-year-old woman, married to David, a man who checked all the right boxes. He was stable, responsible, dependable. He never forgot to take out the trash, never missed a payment, and always asked if I needed gas in my car. On paper, that sounds perfect, doesn't it? But what no one tells you is that perfect can also be hollow. Predictable. Lifeless. And that kind of emptiness eats at you slowly, quietly, until one day you realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. That's where I was, going through the motions, stuck in a marriage that looked fine from the outside but left me invisible on the inside. And then, everything changed. It was early June in Virginia, one of those heavy mornings where the air sticks to your skin. The kind of heat that makes you restless without even knowing why. I was in the kitchen, cutting fruit, when I heard footsteps behind me. It was Ethan, David's son from his first marriage. I hadn't seen him in years, not really. The last time I remembered paying attention, he was a lanky, awkward teenager. Now, he was 22, home from college for the summer. And in that kitchen, that morning, I realized he wasn't a boy anymore. He mumbled something about fixing a shelf, his voice deeper now, steady in a way that sent an unexpected jolt through me. He leaned against the counter, casual, confident, his dark hair falling into his eyes. I caught his reflection in the microwave door. He wasn't looking at my face. For a split second, I froze. My pulse quickened. I should have brushed it off, pulled my sweater tighter, made a joke. But I didn't. Instead, I let the moment hang there between us. The drill slipped from his hand and clattered onto the tile, breaking the silence. He flushed, stammered something about being clumsy, and rushed out. But I stayed rooted in place, gripping the knife, my heart thundering. Because the truth was, it had been so long since I felt like someone saw me. Not as a wife, not as a homemaker, not as the predictable partner who always had dinner on the table. But as a woman. I told myself it was nothing. That I'd bury it by dinner time. But I was lying to myself. Because once something inside you wakes up, you can't just put it back to sleep. That night at dinner, I felt it again. Ethan barely spoke, his eyes on his plate, but when our fingers brushed while passing the salt, it was electric. A silent current running through both of us. David, completely unaware, rambled on about work. And for the first time in years, I wasn't listening to my husband at all. The days that followed only made it worse. The summer heat pressed down on the house, and one afternoon I suggested we swim in the pool. It seemed innocent enough. But when I walked out in my swimsuit and saw Ethan already in the water, leaning back with the sun glinting off his shoulders, the air shifted again. His gaze found mine, steady, deliberate. And I felt powerful in a way I hadn't in years. Desired. We talked about nothing at first, his classes, his friends, the boredom of suburbia. But when his foot brushed mine under the water, I didn't move away. And when he offered to rub sunscreen on my shoulders, my breath caught. His hands were gentle, respectful, but there was something more in the way they lingered. Later, when I stumbled climbing out of the pool, he caught me. His arm strong around my waist, his chest close to mine. For a split second, our eyes locked. The world went quiet. And in that silence, I knew we had already crossed a line we couldn't uncross. That night, David worked late. I poured myself a glass of wine, told myself I was just unwinding. But when Ethan came downstairs in a plain grey t-shirt, hair damp from a shower, and asked if I wanted company, I couldn't say no. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the silence heavy with everything we weren't saying. He looked at me, his eyes steady, and asked, "Are you happy?" It was such a simple question. But it broke something in me. "I used to be," I whispered. "But now, I don't feel seen." His response was quiet, but it burned into me. "I see you. I notice everything about you." No one had ever said that to me. Not even David. That was the night I stopped fighting it. The night our connection deepened into something dangerous, something I couldn't ignore anymore. The days turned into weeks, and our stolen glances became stolen moments. Brushing past each other in the hallway. Whispered conversations at midnight. His hand lingering on mine too long while we washed dishes. David remained oblivious, lost in his routines. And the guilt grew heavier. But alongside it, something else grew too: desire. Need. The feeling of being alive again. Ethan began showing up for me in ways David never had. Fixing things around the house without being asked. Cooking dinner when I looked tired. Sending me messages that weren't about chores or schedules, but about me. About who I was before life became predictable. And soon, I wasn't just sneaking glances back. I was seeking them. One night, David came home early and found Ethan and me standing close in the kitchen. We weren't touching, but the space between us was too small, too charged. David's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. I forced a laugh, made an excuse, but I knew then he could feel it too. That summer became a blur of tension and secrecy. Ethan was torn between school and me. I was torn between loyalty and longing. But the truth was, something had already unraveled inside me. Because once you've been seen, truly seen, you can never go back to being invisible again. And I don't know where this story ends. Maybe with heartbreak. Maybe with choices that destroy everything. But I know one thing for certain. What happened that summer wasn't just temptation. It was real, dangerous, and unforgettable.